So welcome, Jess, and so we are really happy to do the third meeting like this. We started with Luca Jones, Mish, and now it's you. So welcome in New Zealand by Zoom, and so just we are doing this meeting to just give the opportunity for all the paddlers to know what the champion are doing. And thank you for your good answer, and you are here. So my first question, just I want to ask, how are you managing C1 and K1? And maybe I'll leave just the other question for the other paddlers.
As in, like, managing it at the moment, or
no, like in general,
pre-corona?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I guess.
Yeah, are you doing more maybe C1 than K1, or are you doing half-half, and what is it? And
yeah, until probably 2018, I was doing a lot more K1, only because it was the Olympic discipline, and I think it was all the physical work I could do in the kayak. So anytime there's like a flat water lactic session, or hard loops or something, most of the time I would be doing that in the kayak. I just found that I could get my heart rate up higher and that sort of thing, and it just, flat water C1 was never something I found very fun. So all the physical work mainly in the kayak, and then I would do technical work on the whitewater in the C1. And now my split is much more 50-50. So I try and get however many whitewater sessions we have, I'll do some in kayak, some in C1. Sometimes if it's like an hour or an hour and a half session, I'll try and do a bit of both. So I'll do 45 minutes in kayak, 45 in C1. I know some athletes don't like to split during the session because it takes a little while to get the feel back. I know some athletes like Dan Watkins, he likes to do a block, so he'll do like 3 days kayak, 3 days canoe. But for me, that's always worked well to just chop and change, because sometimes you do a course and you're like, oh, I wish I could try that in C1. So it's good to be able to swap. And I've been doing C1 since I was 16, 15. Yeah, so like 10 years now, which makes me feel a little bit old. But I enjoy both of them.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions, guys?
I'll jump in at this point. Oh,
sorry,
no, who? Yeah, go, Holly. Go for it, Holly.
I was just wondering, when did you start pedaling K1 and when did you start C1? Like, did you start them at the same time, or did you start C1 way after?
Thanks for your question. I started K1 first. I was probably 11 when I started K1. And I jumped in C1 at nationals like once a year, just to do a chicken run down the course in a C1 and then progressively take a few more gates. But that was kind of the only time I did C1 was at nationals, when everyone does everything. And then when I was, I think 14 or 15, I started in the C1. In Australia, we had like a group of girls who'd started all together, so it was really nice to have that kind of group environment. And it was around the time that Australia, UK, were doing like a push for the C1 women category. So we were lucky that Team Oz kind of jumped on board and supported us in the C1. So we all started together, which was a nice way to do it, because we kind of didn't know a lot about C1 and we were all learning together. So it was good. And for me, I wasn't strong enough back then to do any cross styles, so that's why I started switching, and I continued switching.
I try to remember, Jess, you were paddling in C1 in 2011 when we met in France during the World Cup at l'Argentière. Yeah?
Yeah, that was my first World Cup gold medal, I think, in l'Argentière. So I was, how old was I? 17, yeah.
Awesome. Matt?
Yeah, question from me is, like, you kind of noted there, you've been winning World Cup medals from from 17, winning Olympic medals from 18, kind of being junior, under 23, and world champion. What motivates you to keep going, to keep getting out of bed every morning and training?
I think for me, it's I guess I have to kind of bring my parents into this, because both of them were obviously, they were both athletes, then they became coaches. And I remember my first junior world champs in Foix in France. I was 15 or 16, and I remember hearing the loudspeaker, because I speak and understand French, and they were saying, oh, her mum was the queen of the river, can Jess be the princess of the river. And it was like my first big international race. I had no idea what I could do, and there was always that kind of looming pressure of, can she match her parents, or what can she do? So I think I struggled with that early on. But then when I sort of found my own direction, my own path, the fact that I did both events and my parents never did, it was kind of like my point of difference. And what motivated me was being able to do both events and try and learn and improve in both. So I guess for me, having the two events gave me that variety, that it never felt boring, and there was always something that I could learn. And having success early on, I think, London 2012 was my first Olympics, and I won a silver medal, and that kind of was quite a big shock. Like, I thought I could make the final. If I had a great run, I could make the final. And the podium, it was like, I need to do the run of my life, and the best girls need to stuff up kind of thing, which sort of happened too. So it was, things aligned for me in that sense. And after that, I felt like there was a little bit of pressure. There was a bit of expectation. It was like, was this a one-off, or now I kind of feel like I have to prove myself that it wasn't a fluke? So that also motivated me in a way. But I think it's always been about what I could do and what I could learn on the water. And I think we're lucky that we're in a sport that's so fun, and there's so much variety, that wherever you're paddling, you guys have so many beautiful natural rivers. And whether it's a natural river or white water course, there's different skills you can learn. It's always different every day. So that's always been a big motivator for me.
Okay. So I can ask you two questions maybe, instead maybe other people found some question. Jess, how are you managing you are coaching by your mother and you're training with your sister? Is it like normal for you, or if it's like sometimes it's hard, or then?
Yeah.
And the second question, it's oh, sorry, you can go for this one, and I can do it for later.
Okay. So I think it's all I've ever known, really. Because when I started out, I was kind of following mum or dad down the course as like a little duckling, following them down. They taught me the basic skills. I started with a couple of friends, which made it enjoyable as well. And then when I was making the team, I integrated that. Mum was coaching the national team, so I integrated her group, and that was with, at the time, like Will Forsyth and Kate Lawrence, who are both retired now, but there was other people in the group. It wasn't always just me. And then now there's Kate Eckhart, Demelza War, Noemi. So we do have a good little group of girls, and there's a great dynamic. We're always having fun on the water. There's always an expectation for us to bring our best. And like, mum is quite strict and quite firm, and we obviously have our clashes sometimes, but I think overall it's that I know that I trust her very much, and I know that she has my best interests at heart, and that she is very experienced and knows what it takes to be the best, and that generally whatever she's pushing me to do or challenging me to do, I know that it's going to be good for me. In general, that's my mantra, is that anytime it's hard, it's like, okay, this is good for me. So I think also my sister, it's great to have her, because when you're having a moment with your coach, you can also have that look with your teammate where you're like, oh my God, like I'm so over this. But having that camaraderie is important too, and we enjoy each other's company. We can push each other. But it is a challenge when you get home and there's no space and you all live together. So we breathe kayaking as well. But we are getting better at that too, and switching off is important.
Okay. are you doing any flat water actually? Like not during the lockdown, but like normal at your level now? Are you doing some flat water?
Yeah. I do flat water. Depends on the period. Usually in our off season, like October to January, I might do two sessions a week on the flat water, sometimes more. I also do a bit of sprint paddling, so in a flat water boat. At the moment, I'm doing a lot of that because it's all I can do. So it's quite good, I find, for the physical work, just to get that baseline back up when you've been over in Europe all summer just racing and doing tech sessions. So I think it is important. It's also good to just get back on the flat to feel that forward stroke technique and work on that. And yeah, I think during the season there might be one session. It kind of goes from like endurance sessions into sprint sessions. But when I was younger and through school, I did a lot of flat water because I wouldn't be able to make all the whitewater sessions because of school, or because it was what I could do in the time that I had. You know, the whitewater stadium wasn't open at 7 o'clock in the morning, so I had to go on the river and do flat water. And there's a lot of value in that, and a lot of the best paddlers do a lot of flat water to this day. But it is definitely more fun to do the whitewater.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. Any question, guys? Paddler, coaches?
Do you have any advice?
That's a broad question. Advice on life, on paddling?
I think he means, so like, if you could pick one piece of advice you could give to someone who's like, how old are you? 17, or someone at school who's, I don't know, training pretty well, but maybe not in lockdown. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's hard to define one piece of advice, but I think when you're young, there's always got to be the element of enjoyment and fun. Like that's why you started. So you want to keep finding that, but then really be clear on what your goals are. And when you're at school, it is hard to kind of balance that. But I always found it so disappointing when like heaps of my friends just stopped sport altogether throughout school because it was like, no, I need to focus on study. It's like, yes, focus on your studies, but even if you go out for like a 10-minute walk, that's going to help. You know, you're going to breathe, you're going to be moving, it's going to refresh your mind, and you can study way better. So keeping up your training alongside school, I think, is really beneficial. Then just be clear on your goals and try and like, I stick them up where I see that thing there. That's actually like contact book covering that I found when I was cleaning out my room, and I was like, I'm just going to stick this on my mirror and I'm going to write down my weekly plan, and every day I'm just going to write down 3 things I need to get done, even though in lockdown it's quite challenging. So sometimes it's literally just like make my bed and then it's like do some movement of some sort, and then, you know, get whatever homework task I need to get done. But having simple things that you can tick off, and having like I think an accountability. If you're someone who needs accountability, get a coach to Skype in or a friend to Skype in and like partner up sessions like that, just to keep yourself motivated and accountable. I know we're kind of on the way out of lockdown, but I think having that momentum will really help. And yeah, just be clear on your goals and try and write down little things and see improvement, I think, is important. And like, yeah, just don't be discouraged if you don't, because it's going to take time sometimes, but just stick at it. I don't know if that was one piece of advice. I think that was like 30 disjointed pieces.
I'll jump in then. Oh, no, go Anna.
Okay. Hi, Jess. I just want to ask what the next few years look like for you. I think you've already touched on what keeps you motivated, but you know, COVID-19 aside, how do the next few years look for you going forwards?
Well, this whole year looks quite grim. No, as in I'm not sure what we're going to be doing in Australia, we're probably, our borders are closed probably until next year. So hopefully they open us up and we can come visit New Zealand. But for Europe, it's looking like probably not till next year. So I guess I'm kind of wrapping my head around not competing this year, which will be a big difference. And then obviously the build up to Tokyo next year is something that's driving me forward. And then after that, I am very much still looking towards Paris 2024 and building up to that. And obviously being French, that's quite a powerful driver for me to be able to race on like a semi-home Olympics, I guess. And studying, I think I was a bit disappointed because I could have studied this year, but with the games, I thought I'd wait till next year. But now with the postponement, it was like, missed opportunity to do it now. So there's definitely going to be study on the cards as well, just to, top up and work on that life after sport phase as well.
Hey Jess, it's Kerry here. Hey, I've got a question if I could. When you have a which is very rare, but when you have a bad run, how do you how do you cope with getting over that to get yourself back in the right frame of mind and back in the mode?
Yeah, they do happen, trust me. I think everyone's going to have bad runs, and I think back to the race that really sort of triggered me. There was two. There was 2013 Worlds and there was 2017 Worlds. And 2013 I won the C1 race, and then the next day I completely bombed out in the kayak. And in 2017 I was the favourite to win the C1, and I came 6th or 7th, I think, and didn't have a very good race. And the next day had to race the kayak. And those two really taught me the importance of switching off emotionally. So I'm lucky that I have two events and that I could try and back up and bounce back. But sometimes when you've only got one event, you still need to go through that process of, okay, that was a bad race. It doesn't mean I'm a bad paddler. What went wrong, and just learning from it and just looking at the video really objectively, taking the emotion out. Sometimes that takes a few days. You're really upset about your race. You've got to have your cry. I do. And then you can come back and look at the video and look where you went wrong. Was it technical, or was it your preparation? Was it the moments before your race where it just kind of unraveled? So just trying to figure out what went wrong and learn from that. And for me in 2017, it was just that I wasn't in my own race. I was listening to everyone else. I was too hyped up. I wasn't really, focusing on my own run. And then I let it unravel, and I was absolutely devastated after that run. I cried most of the evening, and then I just, all right, switch off, do like a relaxation exercise where you just try and, switch your muscles off, breathe for 10 minutes, and then have dinner, watch a trashy film, come back the next day and try and get your revenge and do something better. So I think using those bad experiences as fuel for learning and fuel for being better next time, not as like pressure that was a bad run, I need to do better today. It's just, you're learning from each experience, the good and the bad. So I had a few last year as well. Bratislava for me was not a great World Cup, and then I had to try and bounce back, and it was part of our Olympic selection. So it's a constant process, and when you're young and you're starting out, you have those bad runs, but even when you're at an elite level, you have those bad runs, and you've got to kind of learn from it, and it's all part of it. It's important to fail sometimes.
Thanks, Jess.
I was just wondering, another question. Is there anything you do before your run to try and calm yourself, or just to get yourself in the mindset to do a good run?
Yeah, I'll talk you through my routine, I guess. So I think it all starts sort of the night before for me. It's like you've watched the demos, maybe you can journal or write down a few key points that you need to work on for the course. I always write down like my race plan the night before. So I'll say like 8 o'clock, get to the course, 8:30, warm up for 20 minutes, then get off, walk the course with the coach, get back on 30 minutes for my run. Like I sort of write down the race plan so that I know at each time exactly what I'm going to be doing, and I don't have to think about, oh, should I be doing this, should I be doing that? It kind of takes out all the thinking for you and that nervous energy. So when I get to the course, I always, I'll warm up I usually do 2 warm-ups, one like an hour and a bit before. And that's very much a physical warm-up, so just getting my body awake. So sometimes there's a bit of stretching and yoga and movement. Sometimes there's some just hard paddling straight. You need to get a little bit lactic. And then I like to watch a little bit, but it's important that when you watch that you don't over-analyze or over-watch. You just look at each part a little bit, and then once you're confident that you've seen a little bit of everything, you've talked to your coach, I get on back on the water. And that's when I do some visualization. So I'll sit and close my eyes and then watch myself do the course and try and visualize the key strokes and the key moves. And then about 7 minutes before my run, like when you go up the conveyor or when you're kind of in that warm-up zone, you're watching to see where someone is. I'm sort of listening a little bit to what's going on and listening to the times, but not really taking it in. I'm just allowing it to happen. So it's like, okay, yep, that's cool. You take it in and you kind of leave it. And then I'll sit in the start and I'll just breathe, just focusing on my breathing. And I think if you're someone who gets nervous, just think of a few key words like the first few gates. You know, you're like, okay, posture, long strokes, and flat boat, whatever it's important that you do for that key move. And then once you're in your run, you should be in it and you'll go.
Thank you.
Jess, so I guess it's like not known, but to me, it kind of appears like, especially in Penrith, when you're racing and you have a mistake, it kind of looks like you hit another gear. How do you deal with, like, if something kind of pulls you away from your zone or your plan, or something goes like super well and you have to kind of center yourself during your run? How do you sort of deal with those things and then work yourself through that to then finish it off like you want?
It's a good question and something I'm still working on. The gate that I've hit the most in my career, can anyone take a guess what gate that is that I've hit the most? Correction, gate 1. I hit gate 1 over 10 times. And it's interesting because it just shows that I'm maybe not completely focused at the start. And so when I've hit gate 1, it's like Finn says, so often I go into that extra gear because it's like, oh my God, swear word, like you've just hit gate 1. So switching into that extra gear just means there's no other mistake I'm going to make in this run because I'm in it now. You know, that was my lapse of judgment, but I'm in it now. Sometimes when it happens further down the run, that's when I struggle a bit more, and it tends to maybe like you hit one gate and then you might make another mistake, and it's like compounding of errors. It's that snowball effect. So something that I try and work on that every day at training. So as soon as I've made a mistake or I've hit a gate at training, I don't just stop and redo the course. It's like, no, I need to finish that section. Or I need to, finish that run off well. So it's kind of, you can't let yourself think about the touch. It's sort of, oh, that happened. What's the next gate? Just sort of reframing. So sometimes it's just going reset. And for me, that's like posture or sitting tall, or sometimes it's like a grunt of frustration and then I'm back in it. So I think everyone needs to sort of find what works for them. But for me, I know that when I hit a gate early on, it kind of does spur me on to be more focused. And when it's towards the end, that's when I can lose focus more easily. So I need to keep working on that sort of thing and for me, that's, yeah, that resetting kind of technique, I guess.
So if you don't hit gate 1, you reckon you've got it sweet? Is that...
Well, sometimes when I hit gate 1, I do the best run of my life. So it's more, I think it's more about staying in the moment. So when sometimes it's not about a touch and it's just you're a bit low and up. And often in our sport, if you're a little bit badly positioned for one gate, it does kind of connect to the next. So it's trying to really adapt quickly to rectify the situation. And I think there's a couple of times that I've reacted really well. And one of them was at the Worlds in 2018, where there was this move down the bottom where there was like an upstream and then a down on the corner of this stopper and another down here. And a lot of the guys were drifting off this gate here and missing this gate. But a lot of the guys, Peter Cowser included, weren't in the best position and then kind of were like, well, there's no way I'm going to get the gate. And when I got to that gate, I felt my back slide and I just really I was like, there is no way I'm missing this gate. And it was that drive to get to the next gate, even though I was in a really bad position. And I think that's something that you work on at training every day. So we do tend to be perfectionists when we get to a bit more of an elite level, when you're doing quarters or thirds or halves and it doesn't go well. That's exactly when you need to be training that adaptability of, I'm not in the best position, but I can still pull off this move. And I know that in our team, for example, some of the guys don't always do that. And I've been caught in that of not, you're not in the best position and you want to be getting the line perfectly, but that's exactly when you need to be pushing, because that served me really well at those world champs. And I got that move, even though when we look back on it, we go, oh my God, I thought you were going to miss that gate. So really that's that whole don't give up, even at training. Try and get those gates.
So one question I always ask is that in New Zealand and Australia, we're pretty far away from the main competition. So you're normally traveling to Europe for extended periods of time. And what are the key things about traveling, making sure when you're arriving at the other end and kind of being in Europe for a while, what are the key things that allow you to kind of continue to training and keep progressing without kind of slipping backwards?
I think for me, it's that I love a change of scenery. So I love being at home and training at home and that routine, but I do love the excitement of being in a new place. And we do tend to spend a long time overseas. Sometimes it's like 4 months. So there is that gap in the middle of the World Cups where it's like a month and a half or so, where a lot of athletes go home and they train at home, and we tend to stay over there because there's no white water back home. So that's in that period where it's good to get yourself into a routine and find a base and just be a bit more, make yourself home, so to speak, even though we're moving around a lot. And I've always enjoyed that. I find that quite easy because I've been traveling a lot, but I know some athletes do struggle with, homesickness and getting over it a little bit. But if you're motivated and driven and your goal is to perform well that season, there are ways around that to keep those motivation levels up. And that's maybe finding training partners or going somewhere where you're going to be around great athletes, like in Prague, and just surround yourself with like-minded people. I think I love getting overseas and changing rivers. I think that's one of the best things about our sport. You're constantly on a new river and you can adapt to a different course and learn new things by changing a lot. So even in New Zealand, if you have the chance to go to different venues, I think it's so good for your skills, especially as young juniors. I think that's really valuable.
So this is on behalf of Courtney. She's just here hiding out the screen. What do you do? Obviously, a lot of your training at the moment might be out of the boat. But in a general like training program, training block or whatever, what kind of stuff do you do out of the boat? So like in the gym, I don't know, running, cross training, other stuff like that.
Yeah. So we generally have, in a normal, before Corona period, we'd have 5 sessions on the whitewater. Usually they were like Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe on a Monday as well, but I would sometimes do double sessions on the weekend. And then I would do 2 to 3 gym sessions. And in the gym, it's generally fairly classic stuff: pull-ups, bench, deadlifts, abs. Like it's nothing too crazy, because I still need to build my strength. And then I play around with some core exercises and stuff, but literally my goal is to be like Luca. I think she's like phenomenal in the gym. So it's like, what's Luca doing? I should try that. And so try and learn from her. I think she's very cool. And then I'd also do Pilates. The gym I go to does like reformer Pilates. So I like that because it's a different sort of session. It's quite low intensity, and it's works on all your little stabilizer muscles. And I've had a lot of back issues in the past. So for me, that's quite important to maintain, to just work on those stabilizers. And so what's that? 3 sessions. And then I hate running, but I'm getting back into running. So that's going to be a part of my training at the moment. And then some flat water sessions as well. So my cross training, I don't really do a whole lot. It'd probably be sprint paddling and maybe a run, but I avoid that if I can. But I'm back into running now because staying home means I've eaten a bit too much. So, you know.
I was just wondering about your opinion on this, because when we talked to Luca, she said it was quite beneficial as like a young person to do a bit of creeking to get yourself comfortable with the whitewater. So have you done much creeking like when you were younger, or still do now?
I agree with Luca. If you can, I think that's great. I think you need to be very responsible though when you do it. Obviously always in a group and to your level, and not crazy waterfalls if that's not your level. But I haven't done as much as I would have liked to, I think, because I did a little bit in Europe. So L'Argentière and La Durance rivers in France. I did Bourg, river runs like that, I think are amazing. And in New Zealand, you've got beautiful rivers to do. So I also did a bit in Kaituna too. So not a whole lot, but I would have liked to. But in Australia, there's not a lot of creeking that we can do, unless you go to Tassie or you go up to Queensland. And for me, it wasn't ever the priority. So I wouldn't sort of set time aside to do those things. It was like, if it's close and possible, then I would. But if you can, I think it is great because you do build your confidence on the whitewater. And then when you get to a whitewater slalom course like London, which is quite big and pushy, that a lot of people might be a bit scared of, you're way more confident in the waves. But to answer your question, I didn't. And then now I'm not really allowed to because we can't get injured doing anything fun. So that'll be after the Olympics.
Okay, any other question?
Do you do anything in your training that you think is different to like most slalom athletes that you think is good, or do you just sort of follow the process, I guess?
Good question. I think in our sessions, I think I generally do pretty similar to what a lot of people do, but I think I do quite a lot of volume. So like if there's a full session, I'll do 10 fulls. And sometimes in those sessions, it's like, you know, the session is delivery and the goal is to keep delivering good runs, even though you're at your 10th full and you're exhausted. It's like, this one needs to be your best one. And it's more of the mental side of things that's quite difficult in those sessions. So I think Also, we might do sessions where we spend 2 hours doing tech, or we'll do a back-to-back session, 1 hour in kayak, 1 hour in C1. And it's just that repetition of different moves and on water time, I think that might be a little bit different to what some people do, but I think generally I follow a similar structure in my sessions in like progs and tech and tough tech and fulls and loops and that sort of thing. But I think it's your intention during the session. It's like you're not there to just tick the box that you've done an hour. You're there to tick the box that you've done an hour of really deliberate practice where you've learned something and where you get off and you go, okay, that was really challenging. I didn't do that very well, but I'm really proud of this. And sometimes I might do an hour session, 55 minutes of that is not my best work, but the last 5 minutes, it's like I had an aha moment and I really turned that session around and I finished on a good note. So it's finding like little nuggets in that session that you can say, I'm really proud of how I did this. I need to work on this. And I found this challenging, or I didn't do this well, or, you know, having that reflection.
Sweet, thanks.
What do you think the key points are, or what tips do you have, I guess, on being really like consistent in your runs and trying to, I guess, put your best foot forward? Like, do you have any ways that you manage to do that other than, well, I mean, practice is obviously very important, but yeah, aside from that.
Yeah, good question. I think it's important to do the simple things well, and for on your race runs, just keep it simple and do what you know how to do. You know, if you've never really done that upstream in a sweep up, don't try and do it in a sweep up in a race. You know, just try and really stick to what you know how to do and keep it simple in that you need to get through the gates in, you know, keep the boat running. Sometimes it's not just the hard moves that are important, it's those bits in between where the boat stops and you lose time because you're a little bit low in and up, or because your boat hasn't got that boat speed the whole way through. So I think sometimes it's just about keeping it simple. And I know when I was younger, I was just like, I just need to get the gates. And you don't need to charge. First, you need to get the gates, you need to be clean, and then you can lift the intensity between the gates, and then you can learn how to charge the whole way down. But I think every slalom paddler will say there are moments where you just need to let the boat glide and let the boat do its thing, and then you accelerate afterwards. So yeah, my tip is just keep it simple and do what you know how to do. It's what you do at training, and then you need to just trust that you've got the skills to pull off the race runs, which you do.
Awesome. So we have maybe a minute for the last question if you have, guys. If it's not, we can just...
What's your last question? Go, Tess. You look like you want to ask a question. Or I'm just going to pull out another name. Oh, Chelsea's on here too.
Tess looks like she's dying to ask a question. It's really cool to hear, Jess, how you you know, you talk about your trainings and how you have to improve on this and you have to learn that and you have to, you know, still improve here and improve there. It's kind of a bit mind-boggling, really, to think that you can still find things you need to work on. But I guess it's a lesson for us all to that, you know, there's always somewhere to improve. I guess that's what your message is, anyway.
Yeah, but I think it's also, you know, about enjoying the session too. You know, like sometimes you find enjoyment in the fact that you finished that session and it was bloody hard, but you feel really good about yourself that you've done it. And those are moments that, you know, I always think back to when I was doing swimming, and it was like I hated going to training because I knew it was going to be really hard. But when I got out of the pool, I felt really good about myself. So that's kind of what kept me coming back. Whereas for slalom, I enjoy myself on the water as well, and that's a big bonus. So you should always be enjoying yourself. There are going to be moments where it's a lot harder and maybe not as enjoyable, but you know why you're doing it, and that's to have fun. And you should always, remember that. And if you can keep, trying to learn something new and setting goals and working and applying on little things that can help you improve, then that's a bonus.
Thanks, Jess. That's been really cool.
No worries.
I have maybe last question, quick. How many sessions are you enjoying during the week?
Wait, Tess had a question.
Tess,
Tess. Do you find that doing C1 helped you with your K1?
Yes, great question. I do. And I think that's why I keep doing it. And I love C1 because it's, what I love about K1 is that kind of, I can charge and I can try and paddle like the guys and cut the lines and try new sweep ups and moves and whatever. And it's fast. But what I love about C1 is that it forces you to be more strategic. You've got to use the water more. You've got to position your boat better. You've got to know when to swap and how to do different things on both sides. So it gives me an extra element that I can apply to my kayak, and then I can also try and bring things that I do in my kayak to my C1. So I definitely encourage people to do both. You don't have to do it all the time, but just to learn a little bit in C1, I think is really helpful.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jess. I think we are at the end to the meeting. You have another one soon.
Yeah.
Thank you for thank you for coming and to share all these experiences. Maybe I think it's awesome for the paddlers, but for the coaches as well.
You do.
No worries. It's been nice to chat with some familiar faces and meet some new ones on Zoom. Hopefully we'll get over to NZ this year and be able to paddle with you guys.
We hope you're welcome anytime. So thanks a lot, and see you next time, maybe on the water.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for your question, and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.